exclusive distribution agreement for Dungeons and Dragons. So we did dedicated issue 6 of Alan Weasel to Dungeons and Dragons, and we started selling it mail order. We went over to America. That's me carrying these boxes of games, and there's Steve Jackson, my business partner, and this is Gary Gygax, who invented Dungeons and Dragons. And we even got to be Miss Wisconsin in 1976. I don't know what she's doing now, but something like that. We started selling it in little shows, and then we decided we needed money to expand the business. Now, you'll all find the difficulties of raising money is not easy when people don't understand what you're doing. It's always been the case. We were in 1978, we've got this great game. This is not the actual bank manager, this is my vision of what a bank manager looks like. And you go into a bank manager and say, hey, I've got this great game, it's a role-playing game, you're a hero and you're a wizard, and you kill monsters and you find treasure, and you role-play, and it takes months to play, and we want to borrow some money to come on and expand the business. And he looks at you rather like a dog watching television. His head's all over the place, and he thinks you're mad, and he says, go away. But that shouldn't be the end of it. For me, that was the starting point. We were even more determined to make our business successful because we believe from it with passion. And again, as I say, if you're passionate about something, you go the extra yard. You don't give up, just say, oh, well, I'll do something else. So we decided to, because of this man, it wasn't that really that man. We were actually thrown out of our apartments because we're selling the games. Games Workshop was just existed in an apartment in those days in southwest London, and we needed cash to expand the business. We couldn't get a bank loan, so we had to make a choice because our landlord kicked us out because there was too many people coming in and out of the flat. In fact, when there was one payphone, this was before cell phones, on the ground floor, and he would always answer the phone because we'd hear it ring. It'd always be a mail order call from Games Workshop. So we'd run down the stairs, always too late. Our Irish landlord was always there first to say, hello. Oh, you want Games Workshop, do you? Well, you can go to hell. So we recognise the value of PR as well, and how people really, they're even more determined to find this mysterious Games Workshop. So we had to take a small office at the back of a squash court, and we were obliged to live in a van for 3 months.
This is particular van?
Just about like that, not quite that bad, but it was like that, with a nice front garden. And but again, because you believe in something, you don't mind. And it was parked outside the squash club, so we could go for a shave and a shower every morning, and got very good at squash by default, which is great. So now we're importing. This is myself and this is Steve. Now we've got our little office. We're doing Dungeons and Dragons by mail order, and then we opened our first shop, and this is 1978, our first Games Workshop shop. And the reason we opened our shop, people say, oh, that was wonderful. It was you were very forward-thinking, specialising in your own retail shop. The reason we opened our shop was because nobody else would stock our games. You go to a traditional game stockist, will you state they stock this Dungeons and Dragons game? No, go away. So we opened our own shops, and this is the first day opening, so there's a huge queue. It's now actually a Bosnia and Herzegovina community advice centre, but that's another matter. So then we created a magazine, got rid of Alan Weasel, we created White Dwarf, and here's me doing the magazine, and now White Dwarf is actually is a full colour magazine. It's got a monthly subscription for about 250,000. We opened more shops all around the country, in a warehouse, and Dungeons and Dragons went a colour, and it's me trying to pretend to be a businessman at a trade show. Creating new games like Talisman, and then we opened a miniatures factory to make the little miniatures that represented yourself, building on the hobby aspect of it. And then Warhammer. Who's heard of Warhammer? 2, that's good. 3, that's not bad. So Dungeons and Dragons, this is the point I'm trying to make about IP, did not belong to us. It owned to a company by TSR. And TSR wanted to buy Games Workshop, and we said no. We were really independent, young guys. We wanted to determine our own destiny, so we said no to the offer. So we lost the exclusivity of Dungeons and Dragons, and so we had to replace it. And so we set about getting guys to create Warhammer, and this is the principal point I was trying to make about original IP. If you have your own IP, you control your own destiny. You build value not just in the products that you're selling, but you can leverage that IP across all sorts of different areas through licensing and merchandising, whether it's figures or movies or books or whatever. But you control your own destiny and no one can take it away from you. So Warhammer became the focal point of Games Workshop and the miniature figures, and people would fight huge tabletop battles. And this is the factory making them in the early days when they were still metal figures before we moved to plastic figures, which you still hand painted. It's interesting that Games Workshop don't do pre-painted figures, whereas Dungeons and Dragons is now owned by Hasbro, and they're taking it to a much more mass market area and have now ready painted figures that are manufactured in China, and they look fantastic. But these are Games Workshop figures. They still believe in the hobby aspect, that the consumer should paint their own figures. I was rubbish at painting, by the way. Again, for me, progress is all about simplification, not complication. So many people try to complicate matters because they're trying to impress their friends, especially when they're making video games. They try and make them harder and harder, but what they're doing is actually alienating the consumer. Steve and I took the essence of role-playing, the fact that you're going on journeys, making decisions, killing monsters, finding treasure, and we turn it into a book format called the Fighting Fantasy game book series. And these were launched in 1982 by Penguin that Steve and I wrote. And they were, again, just a series of interactive narrative. They were the first interactive books. At the end of each paragraph you had to make a decision whether to turn left or right. With this guy, do you want to give him something to pay for his services, or you just rather walk past him or maybe attack him? And you make your decision and turn to the relevant page. So there's hundreds of ways of going through the book, but only one correct way. And what was compelling for the reader was that they were actively involved. It was suddenly their story. And this, again, was the sort of birth of interactive entertainment, and that entertainment had always been a linear experience, whether it was a book or a movie or TV. You just soaked it up and thought you liked it or you didn't. But with interactive, you, the user, the consumer, are making all the choices. So it's a much more compelling experience. And these books went on to sell 16 million copies in about 4 languages around the world.
Are they still available? Can we get one?
I just happened to have got they're still in the shops.
Tunnel of Adventure or something like this.
Pardon?
I used to read these books when I was in high school. It was called the Tunnel of Adventure in Turkey.
Was it? Well, I don't remember getting royalties from Turkey, so maybe it's
Are the Game Workshop still open in London?
Games Workshop still open. Games Workshop have nothing to do with these books.
Oh, okay.
You'd get these from an ordinary bookshop.
Oh.
Death Trap Dungeon, and now this content again is valuable. It's Steve and mine individual IP, and now with electronic devices becoming more and more available, these new platforms are emerging for this kind of content. So these titles are now available on iPhone, so you can get them from the iStore, interactive adventures on the iStore. But yeah, they were in 26 languages. Didn't make China. Although someone's asked about it now. We've recently, this last week, someone's asked about the Chinese rights to Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
And didn't make Indonesia, didn't make Russia, didn't make India. Didn't make Turkey, but I didn't know about it. Anyway, so there's still plenty of markets. So that's that. Then I got into electronic. The technology was steaming ahead. I wanted to put my content into the new media, the interactive media, which is the coming of video games. And I invested in a small British developer called Domark in 1984. And Domark carried on making its games, and I didn't get involved executively till